I would say that living here as a foreigner is hard.
China's not exactly the most foreigner friendly.
Sometimes I be missing my Byron fan. It's not that good here.
I think when I'm texting my Chinese friends, I'll shoot them a message. They'll keep on texting me, and then they'll be like, 你在吗? 你在吗?
In this video, I met a few Americans living in China to hear about their stories. What is it really like living in China as an American, and how do Chinese people see Americans? And is Western media telling the full truth? So let's go find out.
How's it like living in China as American?
I think that my expectation was maybe Americans, they didn't have a great image to Chinese people, but actually there are a lot of people who come up to us, and when they ask, where you're from, and we say 美国, and they just give us a big thumbs up. Or we had this one guy say, America, #1. And it's just nice to be well received and be welcomed with an open heart. So very often, if I'm taking a Didi and the taxi driver finds out that I'm from America, the first thing they'll say is Trump. And then the second thing is, did you have a gun back home? But that's really the extent of it. No one's like, I hate Americans, or get out of my country, or anything like that. Okay, it's either Trump or Obama.
What?
They just get bited. It's one of the two.
Every American I interview in the video, they all say the Didi drivers asking political questions. But I feel like regular Chinese people don't usually, or do they?
I found that regular Chinese people don't typically care about politics. No one wants to have a political conversation, and no one cares about it. They're just like, you're from America, that's cool.
How's it like living in China as an American-born Chinese?
Everyone just thinks I'm Chinese. I think the biggest thing is safety. Back home, once it reaches nighttime, I wouldn't go outside at night just because I'm scared of just safety issues. But here everything's so safe and so convenient. I appreciate that a lot. Sometimes I be missing my Byron fan. It's not that good here, and it's more expensive.
You prefer Byron fan more than Chinese food?
Oh no, I prefer Chinese food, but sometimes I like eating my Byron fan. Yeah. I think people-wise, it's probably just the stereotype, more outgoing in the U.S. versus more reserved here, but also depends on who I meet.
So how's it like living in China as American-born Chinese?
It's very interesting. My Pudonghua is all right. My pronunciation is, a little bit weird, but for the most part, it's better than most 外国人。我的中文水平应该 HSK 2还是3，但是我看不懂，字看不懂。在中国的话，他们看我字看不懂，就觉得很奇怪，就不相信我。If I go out to a restaurant and I try to order something off the menu, only look for the pictures, because I'll only just look at what I can see. And then if there's no pictures, I'll ask them what's good here, and they'll be like, what do you mean? You order yourself? I might get ripped off. They might just push me the most expensive thing, but I'll still eat it.
Where I'm from, the U.S., it's cowboys, flatland, all farm and stuff. When I was 16 and I moved to Beijing, that was my first time living in a proper city. And that was totally mind-blowing and changed my whole perspective on humanity and the world. So coming to Shanghai was super chill. It felt way more Western than Beijing. But I miss the Chinese funga of Beijing still. Since you settled down in China, you have 2 kids.
Yes.
What about raising children? How's that like in China compared to the States?
I feel like China is more kid-friendly. There are more places for children, for instance, malls. They have entire floors just for kids. Also, there are tons of parks, and also there are free places to play, but there are also a lot of paid places. But in general, it's just offered. There are so many options that you can pick from. In the States, I feel like it's very limited. I have heard from my friends that school can be a little bit more intense here. And I know that there's a lot of pressure put on kids to study for the Gaokao. So I am a little bit worried about later education in China, but I do think that early education, it's really awesome. My elementary school wasn't even as good as this elementary school. They let the kids do roller skating, let them garden, let them cook, let them go out and explore. Every week there were field trips. Every week, it was insane. I was living in New Orleans, so if I would go out late at night, I would always feel super nervous, always looking behind me, making sure nobody was following me. Also, never leaving stuff in cars. Here, I just feel so at ease. I can go anywhere at any time and just be totally comfortable. In the States, you never know who is carrying a gun, and that's really scary. So you can't mess with anybody because it could be a really bad day for them, and they act in very wild ways. I would say that food costs are way, way lower. Also, there's no tax here, no tips. And that for me has been a huge thing because in the States, maybe your meal is $10, but you still have to factor in the tax on that and then tipping the server like 20%. It all adds up.
Ooh, I think just like the convenience of things. Like I needed to deliver something to my friends, so I just ordered like Paotui, which is like from Meituan. You can just have a guy come to your house, pick up something, and then send it to your friend from across the city. Everything is a lot cheaper here. If anything is over 70 RMB, I'm like thinking about it, which is like $10 USD, but I'm like, if it's like 100, I'm like, is it worth it? I don't know, because everything's so cheap here.
I can feel that because $10 in US.
It's like nothing. It's just like a coffee and then like with tip, or like if you get like a pastry on the side, that's like easily like $15 in Seattle, so.
Do you see yourself move back to the States?
Right now, I would not like to go back to the States. I don't really see myself going there in the future just because life is not really convenient. You have to have a car for everywhere, and everything is so expensive with inflation and stuff.
I'm able to live a lot more comfortably according to my salary, whereas in New York, I would be struggling, even like the tiniest apartment with a really big salary. Like I feel like I can stretch my salary a lot further in Shanghai and travel and save and do everything that I want to, whereas I didn't really have that at home.
So coming from America, do you think when you move to China, are there like a lot of things is called hard to adapting to?
It might sound really silly, but the things that I find hardest to adjust to are like hygiene. Yeah, everything hygiene related to me, for me. Like spitting is such a big thing. Like if I'm waiting for a friend in a public restroom, I'll see that most people that I observe walking out will not wash their hands, or they'll wash it without soap. And when I've asked about it,
You actually ask people about it?
well, I was new here, so I was really curious. I was like, why? And the person I asked about it, she was like, oh, it's because the soap is rough on your hands. It makes your skin really dry. And so I was like, okay, I don't know. I cannot speak for all Chinese people, and I'm not saying all Chinese people don't wash their hands. Just an observation that I noticed that is very common not to. But other than that, it's been amazing. I don't love that so many people smoke here. I don't love the spitting, but whatever. Like everything else, I don't know, I find so peaceful. I love living here. My coworkers who are teachers say that they make more money as a teacher in China as they did as a teacher in America. But overall, cost of living, I mean, I sold my car that I had in America. Public transportation is so cheap here. Riding the subway is just a few cents of USD.
What else about like pros and cons about living in China?
I would say the overall legal requirements that you have to live in China are really difficult. So the process of applying for a visa is quite difficult, and the paperwork involved is lengthy and a little bit confusing. So I am here on a work visa right now, and there was a situation that arose where I wanted to study at a university this summer in Beijing, but then I would have to switch to a student visa, and the process of doing that would just become too complicated, so that plan doesn't work. So we learned a China lesson about the visa situation, like, oh, it's not as easy as we thought to just be able to switch over.
I would say that living here as a foreigner is hard because you can't do everything that a Chinese citizen can do. And I do know that if you get a green card here, it becomes easier, but you can never fully become a citizen. I have met a ton of people who live here, they're like foreign, and they consider this place their home, but they can't stay here forever because once they reach retirement age, they will no longer be able to get a visa, and there's no way to become a citizen. In the States, we are an immigration country, so it's much easier to come and live there, but here it's not so easy.
China's not exactly the most foreigner friendly. Like, for example, Chinese people can use their ID cards to do everything, whereas a lot of times foreigners can't. So if I'm taking the train, one has to manually type in my passport number, things like that. It's just not as smooth. And then sometimes there are things where I'm trying to do work online, and it'll ask me to type in my ID number that I don't have, and it won't accept passport. So just little things like that are a bit annoying as a foreigner.
Do you speak Mandarin?
Oh, I do speak Mandarin, but I actually
don't speak it specifically in Shanghai. The attitude here, I find, it's not just correcting, it's like correcting me with an attitude that I say things wrong or like it's not perfect. And then they're kind of like, huh? Oh, you mean this? And to me, it made me like really nervous to speak. When I first left Shanghai to Xiamen, and it's not like as international, so I only could speak Chinese, and then I realized, oh, I actually can. Like people can understand me. And I traveled more throughout China, and I still don't have this problem, but in Shanghai, it's always the case, and so I just tend to not speak here.
You say something in Chinese? I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not.
我是 Bianca，我的中文名字是明月，我住在上海5年了，我爱中国。
你的中文名字是什么意思？
是从一个非常有名的，不是故事，是一个西安的 poem。我去过西安，书法课的老师问我你有没有中文名字，所以我说我没有。他问我你要吗？所以对，因为我不要用一个 like 必安课，因为是没有意思的中文名字。
你在美国长大，你是怎么样保持你自己的中文水平？
就每个周末会去上中文课。
从几岁开始上？
我从1年级吧，就是我父母逼我去上课。对，
当时想去还是不想去？
不想去。
但是现在回过头看，你觉得当时去意义大吗？
对，就 grateful。
你开始的时候，我觉得中文很难，但是如果你学了很多，这个是越来越容易的。对，所以现在如果你有很多中国朋友，感觉说中文很舒服的。在未来，我希望用中文在我的工作里面，所以我希望在中国可以找一个工作。
你是如何学中文的？16岁的时候来到北京，上了一个北京的公立高中，读了高3。就毕业了，然后直接来到上海，上了上海纽约大学。你觉得学中文难吗？难，难。
How's it like making friends in China?
When I first came here, and I said it was easy, and it's because I lived in Beijing. It's very easy to make friends. They got like the 东北热情, and here in Shanghai, it's more like who are you kind of thing, like New York. So it's harder to make friends.
Pretty interesting comparison because Beijing it just feels like so very Chinese. Shanghai is like nobody cares.
Yeah, I mean Beijing is like a very Chinese city, and it expresses the true nature of the Chinese people, which is one that is like very kind and like very like 东北热情. But Shanghai is this like weird curmudgeon of culture. I think when I'm texting my Chinese friends, I'll shoot them a message and then I'll throw my phone across the room, and then they'll keep on texting me, and then they'll be like 你在吗? 你在吗? And like even like male friends, they'll be like 你在吗? And it's like sometimes when you send a text, it's not like initiating a conversation. It's just like I'll reply in an hour or 2 hours or tomorrow. You know, that's one thing that's been bothering me.
People will start with the text with 你在吗?
你在吗? And I'm like I just want to say like 我不在. And it's like 我不在.
When people know your ABC, what questions they usually ask you?
That's funny. I just made a video about this. The first thing they bring up is something to do with the tariffs or like Trump, just because that's like been in the recent news a lot. And then I've gotten asked if I have a gun, like if I own a gun. People are very curious about that, which I don't own a gun. But just because I'm American, they assume that like I have one. All sorts of questions. It's mostly just like politics and what they see on Douyin. Like, they ask about homeless people, drugs, guns.
What's the funniest question you ever got asked?
A lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing good to eat. Like, 美国没有什么好吃的，他们都吃汉堡，就天天吃汉堡。And then I'm like, okay, first of all, hamburgers are good. Like, I'll eat a hamburger like once a week in America. But there's also, a lot of other stuff that you can eat, not comparable to China, just because there's so much more diversity and a lot more food here. They definitely assume that I eat a lot of unhealthy stuff, and they don't realize that like America has healthy food, like salads and stuff. But personally, my favorite thing is Mexican food. Chipotle, like nothing too ridiculous in terms of like people asking me questions.
They will ask about our dog. Usually we have our dog here, who is an Australian cattle dog, and we haven't seen any of her breed in Shanghai. So they usually think she's a German Shepherd, which if you know what a German Shepherd and Australian cattle dog look like, these are two very different looking dogs.
You told me you guys brought the dog all the way to China.
Yes, and this was probably the hardest part logistically of moving to China. We did our research. Actually, when we looked online, there wasn't much information out there about how to move your dog from America to China. So I wrote a blog on how to do this entire process from start to finish, starting from how to prepare your dog, what documentation you need. Yeah, it was very difficult.
I'll put the link to your blog under the descriptions, so if you guys need it.
Alright, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe for more. Personally, I lived in the US for 4 years, specifically Atlanta, Georgia. I really enjoyed my time there. It shaped the way that I see the world, especially during the age 17 to 21. But I don't see myself living there for long term, but I would love to go back to visit one day. Reconnect with some old friends, eat some delicious food, and maybe I can go to Central or South America. Alright, I will see you guys in the next video.